All right.
It's funny.
Obviously, folks are still going to keep trickling in, but we've got a ton. We have some pre-seeded questions that we'll go through today that I think is going to have a really interesting conversation around it and a brief education on Rufus as well. But before we jump in, I want to give both of our speakers here a chance to introduce themselves, tell us a little about your background in AI and automation. So we'll get started. Oh, and hi, by the way, I'm Shannon. I'm the director of marketing here at Carbon 6. I'll be your moderator and occasional music provider throughout this event. But in the meantime, Vanessa, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. For the ones that don't know me, Vanessa Hung. I'm founder and CEO of Online Seller Solutions and marketplace agency for troubleshooting any kind of issues. I'm also a community ambassador for Carbon 6. So, a lot of the work we do and content we create, I'm helping, the team to develop that. And in the AI world, like what's my CV, I guess, around that? Well, since it started, I started playing around with it, and I feel that a lot of people are talking about like, oh yeah, an AI guru. I don't claim to be that at all. I just use AI and try to understand the systems to a level that I can influence the output that it has. So a lot of my work lately has been understanding how the systems are built and how we can manipulate the answers to, I guess, serve our, um, I guess, objective, which is, selling more and growing revenue and things like that. And in the business, all kinds of crazy automations and, bots creating things in my calendar and responding to emails and things like that. That's true, that happens. And now I am currently working. Today, I'll probably finish that, recording my voice and myself to create clones of myself. So maybe in the future, maybe it will be Vanessa Bot making this webinar. I don't know. So I'm playing
Coming
around with
soon.
that technology.
How can we be sure that isn't what's happening right now, Vanessa?
Yeah, maybe that's the big reveal at
You'll
the end.
you'll never know, guys. You'll
Never
never know.
know. All right, Tom, let's hear from you.
Yeah. Hey everyone. I'm Tom Rohlf. I'm on the product team here at Carbon 6. Prior to that, I ran a company called Junglytics, which is a conversational analytics tool for Amazon sellers. I've also been an Amazon seller myself for the past 11 years between two brands, one that I sold in 2019 and one that I actually still operate today. A little bit about what Junglytics is. You can think of it as an always available data analyst that knows everything about your Amazon business. So you can ask it literally any question about your Amazon business and get a response in real time, including data from your actual Amazon business and analysis on top of that. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for being here as your true human selves. All right, so what we're going to cover today, we are going to talk about what we learned about in AI and e-commerce in 2024. We'll break down Rufus a little bit. We'll talk about how to sell to an AI, and then we'll spend the most of our time today on discussion and Q&A. Some of y'all submitted pre-seeded questions, so we made sure to build those in. But throughout the webinar as well, if you have additional questions, please go ahead and use that Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom screen. That way we won't lose your questions throughout. So again, use the Q&A function. Otherwise, we will not be able to see your questions in the chat because y'all are very, very chatty. Jumping in, we're going to talk about if my screen cooperates. We're going to get started with AI in 2024. So some of the biggest trends in AI in 2024, we know about listing optimizations. There were chatbots, bots for personalized shopping. There was AI for creative. Some of you said across the board when we did the survey that you've been using AI for listing optimization, for keyword research, for ad optimization, for photography, for video. So you guys know this, and then new AI agents as well. But anything else that came up in 2024 that you think should be mentioned here, please use the chat to drop that in, and we'll talk about some of that as we go on as well. But anything from Vanessa and Tom that you would want to add right off the bat here before we jump into a quick refresher of Rufus in 2024?
Mm, I think a lot of it is what came to our industry. So there are so many things that you can do with AI that other industries are applying, especially like in email calendars, like sales operations and the whole flow, like calling people. Like now it's an AI bot calling, like you don't even need humans. So it's been kind of crazy, and I've seen it because I try to keep an eye on things that are happening outside of our industry. For our industry, I think this list is pretty accurate. And yeah, a lot of maybe something that I'll add a little bit in the AI for creative is, or AI for UGC. So now you don't need to pay an influencer. You basically can create an influencer with an AI. That's the only one that is not in the list that I think is a reality currently.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add here is it feels like, at least in the current state of AI, we're still in the phase of the adoption of the technology where we're mimicking all of the things that we used to do, and we haven't stepped into the world of what new things are possible given the kind of paradigm shift of what's happened kind of underneath on the foundational level of technology or the technology. I'm excited to see, I hope 2025 is the year that we kind of cross that chasm from mimicking the past into kind of creating the future. And I guess excited to dive into that in the next, I guess, what do we have, 50 minutes left.
We'll get to it. Cool. Vanessa, you want to give us the little
Perfect.
rundown on Rufus?
Yeah, Rufus, real quick. I thought we thought that this was relevant for our conversation. And part of it is like, yeah, it's a cool new little sexy feature that Amazon has integrated with AI to the shopping experience. But more than that, and the real focus for this conversation, because in the conversation we're gonna give you the things that you should be thinking about, or the questions that you should be asking yourself for your future 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line. Because I think, or one of the biggest predictions is the way we think about the internet right now, it's pretty already intrinsic in our world, like in our lives, it's there. It's a human right. That will be similar with AI. Like, and that's the future that I am standing for. And with that, we need to understand how that will impact or is impacting right now in the shopping experience. That's obviously what we care, because that's how we make money. If we don't convert customers, then we're basically out of business. That's the whole point. So one thing that I like to frame this shift is how things were before and how it's going to happen right now. So imagine that you right now, or let's say last year, were looking for a specific product, or even better, you had a need for something, or a want, a desire, a need, and then you did the work. Maybe you went to Google, or maybe you saw something on social media that prompted you, I need that. So that phase of the discovery used to happen, or was happening outside of platforms like Amazon. Because when you go to a search bar on Amazon as a search engine, it will give you the results for specific products that you're looking for. So in that activity, what we were doing as customers, consumers using the platform, is that we were seeking. We were seeking for information. So we have a need, we're trying to solve it, we seek the solution. Like the whole discovery phase could start somewhere else, but normally it tends to end on Amazon to buy that solution. In the world of AI, and with things like AI shopping assistants, which Rufus is one example, or Rufus is the Amazon example, but Walmart already released theirs officially at CES a couple weeks ago. And more and more AI bots will happen. Like Perplexity already have a shopping assistant and things like that. That will become the norm. And in that phase is when you have a tool, right, an AI bot giving the answers to the customers. And in this case, for example, in the example that you see in the screen, you see that this person was looking for best board games for my 9-year-old son. So the discovery phase will happen through AI. So the more we integrate this technology into our lives, and that could be called Siri, or it could be called Rufus, or it could be called whatever, that technology will be kind of our personalized assistant. And that's the whole point. Like they create personalized experiences for us based on what they know about us and what they have on the other side. Like Amazon has on the other side, the catalog. And for this exercise is that we are being served the information. So the whole discovery process is shrink to the interaction with the bot, because instead of this parent going to Google or social media or somewhere to find what is the best board games, they're gonna use AI to find those answers, right? In the example, there is a research paper out there in the industry talking about Rufus and how it works and things like that. And one of the examples is somebody prompting to the AI, how do you remove gel nails? And the answer is like, well, you need to use pure acetone to remove them or dip them in pure acetone, things like that. They have already the answer because that's a logical thing that you do, but also shopping assistants like Rufus will connect with the product that will solve that problem. So this is a huge shift of what we used to do as customers, as consumers. We were seeking for things, now we're served. Everything will be at our fingertips, even when we don't even know what is that we want. The AI bot will solve that. And because of that, we need to start leveraging these tools to influence the answers so we show up in front of every potential customer that might need or want our product. So for that, imagine that Amazon is a mega store, like a super, super mega store, and there are sales reps in the floor talking to customers looking for the best solution for their problems, which is not a new concept. That's what you do when you go to a store and there is a store attendant. Like they ask you like, hey, how can I help you? What do you need? Like, let me find it for you. And they go and do it. It is the exact same thing. But now it is completely personalized to every single aspect of the user, which is the powerful thing about AI. I hope that we touch on that later. So what is the goal? To bridge the gap between the customer intent and product discovery. So it's faster, it's easier, and ultimately, obviously, what Amazon is betting on is they will obviously spend more, or customers will spend more because now the answers are attached to a specific product, which is amazing, right? So think about the shift in this technology will make you shift your mindset around the way that you optimize for your listings. So instead of thinking about SEO, which is search engine optimization, you're doing MTO, which is model training optimization. The way we train models, like LLMs, like Rufus, it's way different from the way that we train search engines, like the A9 algorithm and the Google algorithm. They're completely different. So as an example, SEO is the traditional search, is search for keywords, and it's based on relevancy and the high rank keywords for that specific product. So for example, you will optimize for protein powders for weight loss, right? Which is completely different in the model training optimization because LLMs use natural language. They don't necessarily need a code or a specific set of keywords, long tail keywords or short keywords to find the answers. You just need to naturally communicate with them and get the answers. So what is changing for sellers in that aspect is that now you create content that serve the function to answer those questions, right? So instead of saying keyword, 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 it will be more, can I explain what the function, the capability, the use case, the activity, the event, or the target audience that will use my product will do with it? So as the example of, for in this case, the protein powders, you will start using things like, this is for weight loss and it's vegan and it's low calorie. So all of those attributes and information explained in a semantic way will help you rank and or be shown to the or be used by the LLM to be shown to customers in a way that answers the questions. So, and I believe because a lot of the research that I've done and a lot of the sellers that I work with making this optimization happen, listings right now are not built for MTO. They're just not. They are gaps in the questions, and that's the work that you should be doing right now. Look, so this is, I guess that this will be one of the only tactical things that you will get out of the webinar, because this is what you can do right now. A lot of the other things will be more strategic and what you should think about when you make those decisions. So data sources for Rufus, three things: customer reviews, which ultimately you honestly cannot control. Like obviously you will make the best out of your product, so you get the best reviews, but you don't control the language of those. Then catalog data, that is the thing that you control, and web information. If you don't have a website, if you don't have your own manufacturer website, this is a year where there is no other option. Because since it's a source of information for Rufus, there you can say whatever you want. Well, I guess not whatever, but you can say more things about your product that will help the system get that specific answer. From what I see right now, the biggest two buckets or factors are customer reviews and catalog data. When the information is not there, Rufus might branch out to web information, but I've seen lately that is less unlikely. So I'm seeing answers like, we don't have information, and that's the kind of thing that you want to avoid. So this is the rundown. Well, one last thing, because I love to think about formulas, and every time it's just, what's the formula here? What is the things that I can do? So semantic SEO, and you can read more about that in the white paper that Oana and Danny and Andrew created, that talks about semantic SEO, filling out the backend attributes, everything in your backend, flat files and things like that. AI optimized images are extremely important for the bot, because now it's reading images and they need to be optimized for AI so it understands what it's happening in the image. And then enhanced traffic. So the traffic is very important in this era of AI, just because the model learns from past behaviors of customers. So if you get, and this is one thing that I said in one of the webinars one time and everybody was shocked, if you get, let's say you launch a product and you start reaching out to your family and friends and everybody you know, so they buy the product and leaves reviews, but they are ultimately not your target audience, you're hurting yourself. Because every time an action happens on your listing, the system, the AI reads that and interprets that in a way that will help you rank higher for specific questions, or rank lower in specific audiences, or be relevant for those audiences. So be mindful, be careful, because now that's what it opens up, the opportunity, or the biggest opportunity for us to reach specific audiences and be relevant for that, rather than relevant for the best top keyword for your category. That is a huge difference. So I think with that is the Rufus rundown. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vanessa. One of the questions that came up while you were speaking, and I think you kind of just addressed this, but I wanted to throw it out there since it's directly related, is Tony asked, should I be redoing my bullet points to answer Rufus's questions?
Yeah. One thing though, if you start doing the research, you will go into Rufus and see the question that is prompting, and also going to your competitors and seeing the questions there. You will find that there are maybe 5 or 7 core concerns or core issues about the product, meaning what is that they're looking for to get the answer. And the more you dig in, the more you will find that the questions become redundant. So if that's true, then the reality is that there will be maybe 5 or 6, 7 topics that you should address in your listing. Am I saying that you need to redo the whole thing just to answer the questions? Not necessarily. And I still believe that we are in a moment in the period of time where two things are happening at the same time. So the same ranking A9, keyword based rank, it's happening. It is still working. And then we have the AI. This is not an either or. Like, should I build my listings for Rufus or should I build for keyword? Like, no, you can do both. But now you focus more on answering those questions in a way that is obviously useful and relevant for your customers, without leaving on the side the fact that you need to still keep playing the game of keywords. I don't know for how long, and I'm betting that it will be more relevant in the future. The AI bot, the personalized assistant, rather than the regular search bar, or meaning looking for specific keywords rather than questions, because now you can put questions in the search bar. So yeah, you should be doing this. It's kind of the call to action here.
So
I
let's
can I can I can jump in with a little bit more there. Agree
Yeah,
with
yeah,
everything that
cool.
you
I was
said,
curious your
Vanessa.
perspective, Tom. Yeah, let us hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I guess to directly answer your question, I think the answer is no. I wouldn't be changing my bullet points to answer Rufus's questions. However, I would say that looking at the Rufus questions is a good place to understand if you've addressed the sentiment of those questions in your listing content. So by that I mean, if a question is, what is the best board game for my 8-year-old? Make sure you have the sentiment around that your board game is designed for children. And with sentiment, I mean, not, you don't need to use the term 8-year-old. You need to use the terms child, kid, family friendly, these sorts of words that the AI will understand also mean 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 6-year-old, 5-year-old. And so I think one of the results of all of this is that Amazon listing content will start feeling more human. So if you go and you look at Amazon today, there's a lot of places where I think titles are probably the most obvious example of this. They're keyword stuffed, they're not human, they're very, very robotic, and they're trying to target algorithms. AI doesn't work like that. It thinks like we do, more so than a traditional search algorithm does. And so no longer do you have to just do what the computer understands. You can create content that humans understand, and the computer will also understand it. So long story short, Amazon will start feeling a lot more human, and there'll no longer be a need to kind of hack together systems that trick computer systems, because they're not really trickable anymore.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you said at the beginning, no, well, the answer is no, because yeah, it feels like in the industry, the sense of urgency of like, oh, we need to change, the world is ending, now AI is taking over and we need to do that. To your point, is what makes sense. And I think two things there. The first one is the example in the presentation, and this is where it becomes why I say the call to action to do something today is relevant, to understand what your audience is asking about. So what you said, the sentiment, when you go to your listing right now, if you go on the desktop, you go under the images, you will see the questions that Rufus is prompting. So those are the top 5 or 3 questions that your audience or your customers in your or in that category, in that product, are looking to get answered, right? So for example, and I did this recently with a supplements brand. They had in one of the questions, Rufus was prompting, does this product contains allergen ingredients, right? And the answer of Rufus was like, there is no product information in the product information, there is nothing about that. That is terrible. Like, that is what you want to avoid. That is the things that, if you ask me, yeah, you need to have that information right now, because if people are going into your listing and clicking that and seeing that there is no information, then they might feel compelled to go to your competitors because they are concerned about the allergens. So that is where you fill out the gaps. And at the end of the day, adding more information, and I put in the well, I guess I boy that slide, but the game here is data is fuel. The more data this AI have, the better it will answer or behave around what the customer intent is. And then that's what you do right now in your listing. But then on the high level is, how do you rank? The game will be moving forward. How do you rank on things like a best board game for my 9-year-old? Because that is the new search engine or the new keyword that you want to target, which is not a keyword, it's a question, right? And that's where you want to go. But right now, optimizing and understanding what the questions are asking your listing and answering them in your content, because it's information about your product, should happen. Like, because I'm seeing, and one thing, Tom, and I would love to get your perspective on this. I think we touched on a little bit when we were discussing about the webinar. I think that this is a zero-sum game, meaning right now, because Rufus, when you ask a question, is giving you three to 5 options, really, once you're there, once you're the winner of that option, it pretty much leaves everybody out versus what we used to have in the past, which is, you put a keyword and then you have endless, like you could endlessly scroll to see all of the options, even though we know that customers don't scroll more than 2 times to find what they're looking for. So I don't know. That's why for me, it feels concerning that people are not doing anything about it. Because ultimately, if they're not winning that position, then they will be left out in the conversation that Rufus is having with customers.
At the highest level, I 100% agree. I think what you're saying, just to be specific, is that essentially the rich will get richer with AI adoption, or in other words, products that are more discoverable will become even more discoverable, and those that are maybe 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th, 100th on the page will become even less discoverable. And I think at a broad strokes level, that is spot on.
Yeah. I don't know. I have my theory on, I think the game here to win won't be necessarily the ranking part. That is the game that happens right now with normal search, will be more on the audience level. So I might be winning for a specific audience and not for the other one. And that's where, to me, feels more like a blue ocean opportunity rather than, the top, I don't know, the top 100 sellers will keep getting bigger and bigger, and then the other ones will go away. If you play your cards right, and if you understand how the system works and how it leverages audience information, then I think you might be able to be the right fit for that specific audience versus somebody else that might be in the top 10, right? For the broader keyword. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel and how I'm preparing for it. Ultimately, we don't really know how this is going to play out in, years to come. The same way at the beginning when people were start trying to game the system to get better ranking, at some point they thought, oh, it's reviews. So the game was like getting as many fake reviews as possible. And then they cracked down that, and then it's something else. And then they crack down that, and then it's something else. So I don't think it will be just one thing that you will do. In the future will be many, many different things. But again, it is scary to think that you can be left out in a conversation where only 2 or 3 options are shown to the customer.
Right.
That's the only concern.
I think at one level, it's AI gives the opportunity for the best products to win, and it comes down to less about hacks and like things that you can control on the listing, and more about just creating the best product experience and the best customer experience, which ultimately is, I guess, in line with one of Amazon's core values of customer obsession.
All right, so this is a lot about predicting for the future, but let's get into some of the questions that we preceded from the audience ahead of time. And then there's also some good questions that have popped up in chat as we've been talking. So one of the questions that we had that came up, which we've obviously already touched on, is how do you see Amazon evolving its AI tools like Rufus, Cosmo, and DSP in 2025? But a couple of related questions that also came up were, is there any indication that more people are using Rufus? And another question that came up is, when do we think Cosmo is going to overtake A9 as Amazon's default search engine? So I'd love to start with you, Tom, what your thoughts are, and then get Vanessa's take.
I don't have a comment on Cosmo. I also don't have any hard data on Rufus in terms of customer adoption. It is a long game though, and Amazon's proven time and time again they're willing to play the very long game if they believe that something is happening. And at least the current sentiment of the world is that AI is happening, as we've seen with other technological innovations over the years. Sometimes that follows through and sometimes that does not. So TBD on whether or not this one is the next internet or if it's the next blockchain. I'll leave my comment there. Yeah.
I bet that's a bit the next internet for sure.
I'm on that side too, I guess, clearly, but you never know.
Yeah.
I've been wrong before.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. This will prove how good we are at predicting. One thing that I'll say on Rufus, yes, Amazon have published some, I guess not, it was not data. and they won't, I doubt that they will tell you the usage. Maybe they will do this year at Accelerate, and they will come out with, we're super proud that we have X, I don't know, whatever kind of questions. The CEO though mentioned something that after the rollout, so the rollout started this year, last year at the beginning, like in January. Then it went out to a bigger beta customer base, and then to everybody that has a Prime account, and then to everybody on Amazon.com. And in one of the interviews, he made a comment that they got, in a couple of months, they got tens of millions of questions every day or every month, something like something super absurd, the amount of usage that the bot is getting. And obviously, they need that because AI is now in the phase of learning. It needs to learn, and the way it learns is by interacting more with the real, I guess, user. So in that sense, the adoption is there. It is happening, probably for people that are, I don't know, 50 plus years. That will feel kind of tricky. Like, no, I don't know what this technology is. I'm not going to adopt it. But I don't believe that's the majority of people that are buying on Amazon. So I believe the younger generations are really adopting it, even at the point where, asking something in the search bar, because that's how now the system, the UI is designed for you to have that access, right? In the past, that wasn't the case. So that's on there. And then A9 Cosmo, truly, it doesn't matter to me. Like, and I feel that we get into these debates in the industry of like, will this happen? Will that happen? It's like, really, our game won't really change that drastically if that happens. Also, from my understanding, and I'm not an engineer and I'm not a technical person, and I'm not even that smart in that side of things, I don't know that Cosmo has the capabilities that the A9 has, in the sense of organizing catalog in a way that it's relevant for customers. So Cosmo is designed to understand what a product is, but it's not designed to categorize and rank and do things like that. So will Cosmo overcome A9? I don't know. I don't I don't think that a technology is an interchangeable technology. I think they're complementary. And also, I don't believe that that is a useful conversation, right? Because it doesn't really matter that much. In my opinion, it's already there. It's already integrated. Let's just build for both at the same time.
Yeah, fair enough. Makes a ton of sense.
One other comment I have on this one is 3 Amazon products are called out here. I think there's a lot of quote unquote invisible AI happening at Amazon as well that isn't getting as much attention. Specifically warehousing robotics, advertising optimization. AWD is more or less an entirely AI-driven offering. If you think about AWD as a forecasting service, customer service within Amazon interacting with their/our customers. One of the main questions around all of these things is like, they all more or less lead to reduced costs for Amazon. There's an interesting question of how much of that reduced cost that Amazon will incur to provide the same service will be passed along to sellers versus just put in their pockets as profit. I don't have any more comments on which path they'll take. It will probably be somewhere in the middle. And I guess as time goes on, I mean, even just looking at their quarterly earnings reports will probably tell a pretty compelling story around that.
Yeah, I think we can all take our educated guesses at the answer there.
Yeah,
we will
I
talk
think for the
bit.
first time they showed $100 billion on their balance sheet this past quarter. So maybe that's directionally the answer.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit in a couple of slides. One of the questions has to do with effectively using AI for advertising. And as we all know, advertising has been a huge arm of Amazon and how it recoups profit over and over and over again. So we'll jump to that. But I do want to get to another question on here. And as a side note, when we, at the end of this, we'll launch another survey real quick. And if anyone is interested in learning more about AI and automation, specifically in advertising, Vanessa's done a really great presentation about that. And we can send some additional information about that sort of triad of Cosmo and DSP and PPC and how that all works into the advertising space. But one of the questions that came in was, what are the biggest risks or downsides of hyper-personalization in e-commerce? And obviously, the bigger conversation of how do we use data in all of this. So Vanessa, you want to start us out with an answer here?
Yeah, I guess I will answer it in a way that I'm just looking for the best of e-commerce. I'm not a customer here, right? I'm just a marketer and seller. I think hyper-personalization and the amount of information that now we have accessible from audiences is a phenomenal thing. Because now we are able to laser target, and this is one of the things. Hyper-personalization is not completely new in the world. It's not that it came with AI. That's been happening outside of marketplaces for decades. Like that's how that's how Facebook built their ads empire by personalizing advertising, like, and personalizing the experience of what you see on your feed on Instagram. Because what I see is different from what somebody else, I don't know, with other beliefs from me sees. So a lot of what we experience as humans through the internet is hyper personalized, right? I only see what I want to see. And unfortunately, that's how these systems are built because they monetize that. So hyper-personalization allows for more and better monetization of audiences. That's where Amazon is going. That's where they will keep going. So the risk here, honestly, for consumers, well, I guess like we will start seeing only what we want to see. Like I don't know how to explain it. It feels so Black Mirror type of experience. So, but on the selling side, it is great because if I have the data of the people that are more likely to purchase my product, and if I can laser target them, and if I can only talk to them, and if I can only create things for them, and the whole experience is around them, then it is likely that you will be selling more. And the conversion, like the journey for your customer will probably be shorter, smaller, less investment in less awareness because things will be already served again to the consumer. So I guess the risks are on the other side, in my opinion. I don't know if there is necessarily a risk. Well, I guess the risk as a seller is that at some point you will tap the market. Like it will be a limit on the amount of people in that audience. So then you will need to start rethinking your whole strategy. But honestly, i'm not I'm not a marketer, so I know that this problem has been solved before, and marketers know how to do what I'm just saying. So I don't know if it's a risk, but as a consumer, I think it's kind of risky. And I spoke about this in South Korea, and in South Korea, the questions were all about this because they have a moral, I guess, pressure of like, this feels wrong. And the government was there, and everybody was like, this is something that we need to regulate. So I don't know how far hyper-personalization will go. It's now just being added to the mix of Amazon, but it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too. And even in the broader conversation about AI also isn't new, right? It's been this hot topic for the past couple of years and generative AI in particular, but it's not new. It's just new how we're talking about it and how we're utilizing it. Tom, what are your feelings on this?
Yeah, so I think there are a ton of positives to hyper personalization, but the questions about negative. So I'll focus on, I think, the one that I see quite clearly, which is echo chambers, and with kind of echo chambers coming down to the size of one. And so as time has progressed, like echo chambers used to be everyone, newspapers used to be the way information was disseminated, and there was kind of, the echo chamber, the size of the distribution of that newspaper, which had a physical form. Now your echo chamber is literally yourself. So as you scream into the void, who screams back? Essentially you do. And there's all sorts of risks with that in terms of just like kind of pigeonholing yourself into your own kind of world that gets narrower and narrower and narrower. And that, applies to global systems, but also to the way you make choices online in any capacity. So I think that's one of the biggest risks is how do you kind of see outside of the echo chamber that you've created for yourself, or I guess the big technology companies have created for you, when that's kind of you're being fed what you believe because it's literally a mirror to what you've told it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, the flip side of over personalization is that it becomes very siloed.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one thing, Shannon, I know we are in the questions, but I love the comment that Jeff
Yeah, no, I was
added
going to
to
bring it
chat.
up. Yep.
Love it. This is one thing I am open to debate for anybody that says that Rufus is useless. I will argue against that any day. But one thing though, Jeff, that I'll challenge you to do is don't go into the things that are more on a medical side, because this is still something that Amazon takes very or not lightly at all because of the compliance and liability. The recommendation on a supplement, it's something that the bot will probably never do because of, I guess, medical implications. So you need to really, the discovery on those type of things will very unlikely happen that way of like, what is the best supplement that I should take because, my hair is not growing that strong or something like that. That is probably not the best approach for this type of search because it needs to recommend something for medical. So if you go in another category or within the same supplement category, you already say that that's what you want, meaning I'm looking to switch my whatever, let's say magnesium. I'm looking to switch my magnesium because this is not really working. I'm looking for something that has a stronger amount of, I guess, magnesium composition, whatever. Like instead of 500 milligrams, you want 1,000. That's where it becomes useful. So a lot of it is understanding right now how to use it and what are the limitations, especially on the liability side, because Amazon will never have an AI bot recommending medical things. So then you take it and then you feel bad or something happens and then you go back and sue Amazon. That won't happen. The system is built with those rail guards, so it will never say something like that. So again, it will get to a point where it will make recommendations. I don't know. That's on the Amazon's compliance side or liability. I doubt it. Until now, if you're in that type of category, you need to start to look into how or what happens in your clients or audience life that trigger the purchase of this type of product. So for example, in the supplement thing that you just mentioned, let's say that somebody's going into a new diet and they're changing diets. Maybe that is the trigger. So the search will go from there and it will go downstream to the specific recommendation that you're looking for. But rarely, like, or not at all. I think in all of the use cases that I've tried, medical recommendations are not a thing. Like it will never subscribe you to take something versus something else, like at all. So I don't know. I still think Rufus is great and it works.
In conclusion, Rufus is great. No, it makes sense
But
though.
yeah,
Category specific limitations for sure are consideration as well.
And
Um,
that question, in coming days, are we going to pay for Rufus? As sellers, yes. As customers, Amazon will never charge us for
that's because the
that.
customer comes first, right? For better or for
Yeah,
worse. Yeah.
yeah. It's a matter of time, guys.
Sorry.
it
Um,
is an, it is an interesting question of like, Google's thinking about it intensely is like, how do you layer advertising into AI? And to my knowledge, no one's figured it out yet. But then again,
Well,
advertising in search was not immediately obvious either. So
no,
we'll
if
we'll
there's a will,
see.
there's a way, right?
Oh, they'll figure it
yeah.
out. Don't worry about
Yeah,
that.
I'll figure
There's
it
too
Oh,
out.
much
yeah,
money
for
at
sure.
stake.
Supposedly, right now, Rufus is, well, in some queries that I've done, I've seen sponsor responses. Not everything. And it's funny because on the advertising console, sellers are not able to determine if that sale came through to Rufus or to a specific keyword. So they're still trying to figure it out, but it's happening. So there are options for that, which again, going back to the zero-sum game, this is even worse because now you play to win the game, which I guess it's what have happened as always on Amazon, but this is just one option. So it's kind of weird.
So we've touched a little bit on this question throughout of how sellers can develop and launch products. I'd love to keep this one pretty short because our next question is about AI for advertising, which there's been a lot of questions about in the chat. But what I'll do is we actually have a replay of a webinar that we did a couple months ago with Isabella Ritz from Ritz Momentum, and Vanessa was on that as well. So I'm going to drop the replay link for that in the chat. But real quick, if you had a quick elevator summary, what would you say, Vanessa, we have to think about as we're developing and launching products in the new world of AI for e-commerce?
Data, 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 and more data. And that means looking beyond tools that give you search volume. Going back to what Tom was saying, understanding the sentiment of the audience, understanding their problems, their pain points. And that is the data that you should be looking into when you make decisions of, I'm going to launch this product in the future. Because keyword volume search is not going to be sufficient for you to justify the, I guess, process of launching something new. I'll say that. Where do you get data? Well, everywhere. Like you have the Product Opportunity Explorer, you have tools for search, you have a lot of AI tools, and there are a lot like that are coming from information that comes from Reddit. There is one tool, and I totally forgot the name of it, where you input your product or category, and it gives you back all of the questions that people are asking around that niche or product or category, which is amazing. It's kind of reverse engineering Rufus a little bit, but it's not Amazon native. It's for the whole web. I guess also including all of the different AIs and stuff. So yeah, like adding that to the mix. And I know this, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, AI will only add different fronts and multimodal ways to do things. So it's not just one dashboard that you will look into and find all of the answers. You really need to do the research.
Tom, anything to add there?
Yeah, I'll jump in and keep it real quick. But ultimately, AI-driven search is just a more efficient way to get the customer to the product that is the best solution for their situation. And so, like the cliff notes of my response is make the best product. It all comes down to have the best offering that's available at the best price for the customer. Ultimately, given that it's more efficient and more about sentiment and less about keywords and all of the tips and techniques that will still work because most product discovery will still go through search for the foreseeable future. But specifically within AI, it's a more efficient way to get the customer to the best product. So focus on actually solving the customer's problem and building the product that the customer like should buy in the most optimal context.
Yeah. Yeah, you still can't cut corners on the quality product and the best in market product.
Yeah, and I guess maybe my point is AI-driven search and AI in general will lead the customer to that product in a less hack-driven way and more in a more optimal way that's impossible to hack because the data sets are way too big. There's way too many inputs. It's no longer a game of, oh, I'm going to put this keyword on my listing 16 times. It's too smart.
Yeah, I think Tony mentioned in the Q&A that there's just an overwhelming amount of data. So how do you streamline that data? How do you save time and find the data points that are most impactful immediately? And you make your best product.
Like a question? Was
Yeah,
that a
well, yeah, if you
question?
got an answer, give it. It's a great question. So
I mean, use AI. That is the answer. Like, we got to a point where, again, getting out of the frameworks and the maximums or the principles that used to work are not the same way that we need to start thinking about when we apply that same principle. So I challenge everybody to think about, will this answer could be answered, or will this problem could be solved with AI? So yeah, you have an immense amount of data that you sit on and you want to make a decision, then you start leveraging AI tools to like summarize and I guess chew and analyze that data to get the answer. So to me, it feels pretty obvious. It's just like use AI to analyze the AI information that you have. So you only sit at the top of the mountain making the decisions, but not really getting into the nitty-gritty like details of the data analysis, especially if you're not a data analyst, right? Which I don't think a lot of people are. Like that's in high demand nowadays.
Yeah, definitely. Since we're talking about using AI, obviously, and specific AIs, the next question that we had was how can sellers effectively use AI for advertising while keeping costs under control? And in the chat, we also had the very specific question of which tools would you recommend people use to explore advertising, UGC, that type of thing.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if the answer that I have will answer the part of cost under control. I
Fair.
feel that cost under control is a very hard thing nowadays with advertising. Because so where I think things will be cheaper is access to content and the creative, right? So before, and think about it, maybe even last year or the year prior that, and so on. Maybe you had to spend 10,000, like $50,000 in a video to go viral, right? And if you think about it, that's how, big YouTube influencers and celebrities do their content. They spend a bunch of money to create something that sticks and then go viral from there. So if virality is one of the ways that you want to advertise and get, influence awareness and all of that, I think with AI and creating UGC or even your brand clone and voice and things like that, that is super cheap, like to a level that is insane. And I mentioned at the beginning, that's what I'm playing with right now, creating avatars and creating my voice to create content. So once this is done, once the part of my voice and the part of my avatar, like what you see right now, which is me, I'm not an avatar right now, but when that is done, then I'll be able to create things in like masses, like many different ads, many different videos, many different assets that then will, again, it will cost you less to produce, and you can start playing around with that and see what sticks. On a platform level of, will that be cheaper to go on Amazon, to go to Facebook or YouTube and then drive traffic to Amazon and things like that? I only think that those paths are only gonna go up in cost because of the exact same reason that I just said. It is even more accessible to do that type of content right now. So I don't know if that part will be enough. And again, the democratization of AI will make everybody have access to these things. And it's about who plays the fastest, like smartest game. And I think speed, it is the key in this world right now. Before, I guess it was more, I don't know, pro development or customer obsession, whatever. I'm not sure what was it, but right now it's just speed. How fast can you go? And with AI, if you know how to use it, pretty fast.
Yeah, I think the key there too is that it doesn't really matter necessarily whether you're using an ideogram or a dolly or whatever. Just create a bunch and commit to experimentation and A/B testing and see what works. Because what is the privilege of everything being at our fingertips right now is the fact that you can do a ton and find out what's failing and what's working very quickly and keep going through those iterations. What would
Yeah.
you add,
Exactly.
Tom?
It's never been cheaper to throw 1,000 things at the wall and hope that one sticks.
I love that.
Vanessa honestly took all the words right out of my mouth. I would have said exactly the same thing that she shared.
Yeah, well, fair enough. That's good because that leads us to our next question, and we are running up on time. I think we're good to run over a little bit, but want to be mindful of everyone in the room too. But what key AI strategies should brands be implementing in 2025 to stay competitive? We've talked about this a lot, but I'll start with you, Tom. But what do you think is most important to keep your eye on in 2025?
I think it's similar to the last question. I think creating many different options and using data to kind of figure out which one wins. The one thing that AI in its current form, which is changing by the day, but its current form, it's really good at creating stuff. It's not yet very good at doing stuff, although I believe that will come soon. And so within creating stuff, there's very little risk in creating bad stuff from an advertising and content perspective, to where previously we would debate, like, is this the best copy or is this the best copy? And who knows? Especially when you have 100 of them. And so just trying to iterate as quickly as possible and throw 1,000 things at the wall and see which one sticks.
Yeah, I like that point of view because it's an optimistic take on it. Like, just do a little bit of everything and see what works. This is a great time to be creative without having to be your own creative.
Yes, exactly. And then I think very quickly here we'll start to see um, AI systems or agents start to actually follow workflows and actually do things within businesses, which then you start changing the unit economics of those businesses, and the ones that change their unit economics and ultimately give a cheaper price to the customer will float to the top, and those that don't have favorable unit economics by using automation will end up with a higher price and will end up losing the market.
Yeah. Vanessa, what would you kind of wrap this up with? And one of the comments in the chat was like, this is kind of making me uncomfortable. A lot of the control is going out of my hands. Automation is taking a lot of the human out of the process. Is it taking the human out of the process, or do we still have some hope for the human side of things?
I love this question. Wait, let me think. Um, I do understand deeply um, the the sense of overwhelm that, oh my God, everything's changing super fast, and it's like you cannot grab it, right? It's like, oh my God, like I just somebody mentioned, like Jules mentioned, I just changed the title. Amazon pressure for the deadline January 21st to change titles within 200 characters, blah blah blah. I just changed the title, but they don't even care. Like so to me, I find comfort in researching and spending enough time in the principles and the strategic thinking rather than the tactics. And this will be my type of speech spiel this year. In every single time that like I get a space where I can speak to a lot of people, I'll say the exact same thing. Guys, if you go back to the principles and you understand where the world is going, it doesn't really matter if it's OpenAI, DeepSeek, Gemini, Claude, whatever, or Amazon or Rufus or Cosmo or DSP, or that is not going to matter. That's going to be another tool in your toolkit. But you need to understand that there is a new toolkit being built. It's a new set of rules. It's a new game. So it's a new framework. So I guess it's a humbling phase of just like, okay, the things that I used to know are not going to be true moving forward. So what is that I need to learn right now that can get me for in the next 5 to 3 years, whatever that is? And a lot of that is understanding the principles. So large language models are in the phase of learning. They want to learn. They want data. Data is fuel. So train the data. Then you use, okay, you can replicate and duplicate and do a lot of automations with those tools. Okay, what are the things? And I'll ask you if that I feel it made me feel better when I came to a conclusion. It's like, okay, I don't need to change my whole business right now, but what is the thing that I do every day or every week that maybe I can automate? So for example, downloading your fulfillment report because you need to know your level of inventory to make a decision on how much inventory you're sending. If that's something that you're doing right now, you can automate that through a workflow, a Zapier and something like it, or pay for a software that does it for you. That's like, okay, cool, perfect. Do I contact 70,000 different influencers every week so I can, find somebody that wants to work with me? If I do that, then there are tools right now, automation agents that sends those messages for you automatically. So it's kind of like you don't eat an elephant in one seed. You need to break it apart. And the best way to break it apart is understanding the principles, how the system works, and then say like, okay, now when I go to an event, when I read a post, when I get some kind of new knowledge, I will frame it, will this serve me or not? Because a lot of people in this industry live on the tactics, on the hack, on the tip, on the trick. And it's just like, yeah, cool. That's fun. It is fun. I'm part of that game too. Like I create a lot of hacks and tips and tricks, but that is not what I believe we should be focusing on. And take the time. If you take the time for the next 2 weeks to focus on where is this going and what does it mean for my business, maybe you even find within AI another business, which is what I'm doing right now, right? Like I love e-commerce. I'll be doing it for as long as I can, but there are so many other opportunities with AI that is insane. So maybe this is your opportunity to get a new business. Am I saying that you should do that? Well, I don't know. It depends on you, but the tools are there. So yeah, it feels uncomfortable because we're transforming into something new that we don't know what it is. And I understand the overwhelm. It's just break the elephant apart and just like little by little, like just one piece at a time. And honestly, the other thing that I'll say, which I feel that a lot of us get trapped because we see other people in social media that is not true. Dude, we're human. We have a very limited amount of time and we cannot know everything. And I feel trapped too sometimes. I'm like, I'm falling behind. That's a feeling. And that's how this system, it's been built to make you feel that way. You don't have to play that game. Just, reassess.
Yeah, I'll jump in with a short, brief comment. If you follow kind of Sam Altman, other leaders in AI, you have to remember that these people are ultimately salespeople, and the future of this space might be exactly what they're saying. It very well might. We'll find out. It also might be exactly what we see today. Likely, my opinion is it will probably be somewhere in between. But my point is, like the kind of, I'm going to say doom and gloom for humanity kind of picture that's being painted by some of these folks is ultimately a sales pitch, and take it with a grain of salt.
I love that.
Maybe don't eat an elephant. I don't know. It's just one.
Yeah, exactly.
Or a
Maybe
I
it's
love the
giraffe.
something
metaphor
else.
though. Being mindful, of course, that we have run over our time. I do have a couple other questions, but real quick, we're going to switch to just our thank you slide at the end here. Just to, of course, thank you for being here. One of the ways that we can put into action, of course, utilizing AI, and we would not be Carbon 6 if not telling you about some of our tools, but we do have a couple of great advertising solutions backed by AI and automation. If you want to learn more about how to leverage personalization with DSP, feel free to scan this code here. But we're also going to pop up a survey on the screen before you log off. And one of the questions there is just if you would like to know more about AI and automation in advertising, let us know. And we can give you more information on that, share some of the links that we shared today, including, of course, the replay. And then would you like to attend another webinar that continues today's conversation? We had a feeling that today's conversation was going to run over, which it has, and we're happy to address more comments in the future. Let's just get that survey up there. Think that should be popping up momentarily. In the meantime, while we've got your attention, Vanessa, Tom, we've had so many conversations about this topic, and we've said, like, let's keep it small. Let's, keep ourselves constricted. And I know, Tom, you're just hungry for this. What's your hottest of hot takes for AI in 2025?
We're going to move from things that create things to things that do things. Um, and I'll leave it at that.
Ominous. Okay, like it. Vanessa, what do you
Wow.
got?
It's hard to follow. Tommy's so stoic and short. Like I will
Like a
stand and
robot
and and
Maybe
yeah,
I'm an
maybe,
AI.
the whole
maybe
time?
the whole time. Listen, I believe that it's gonna change a lot, the same way like internet and Google and search change the world. Um, I feel that that's a wave that's being built right now. Like, and we are just like at the top. And if we keep like getting interested and researching and learning and stuff like that, we will be able to ride that wave wherever it goes. Um, but ultimately, I don't know. I'm a fan of change. I don't know if you got that already, but I'm like super open and I like it. Like it keeps life interesting in a sense. So I'm pretty optimistic for the future. And yeah, I don't know. I hopefully at one point we don't even do this and we all are in the beach drinking margaritas instead of like working. What's work? Like robots will do it for us. Maybe that's a future.
That's the vision that you want. That's what you're manifesting. I love it.
Yeah.
Alessandra just asked an interesting question, but any thoughts on how copyright in the cloud is going to change with all of this stuff? I feel like Tom might have an opinion on that.
Oh man,
Copyright in the cloud?
I have no idea.
I don't understand
I
the
mean,
question.
copyright laws, I'm assuming he's talking about. I do have one opinion on IP,
Yeah, yeah, let's hear it.
in regards to AI. I think it will probably be one of the few things that actually protects people from autonomous systems. Like if you think about um, barriers to entry to kind of creating a competitor to something, one of the few that will likely remain if autonomous systems are making all the decisions for us is the intellectual property that governs kind of who can sell what. That includes trademarks, copyright, and patents. Um, those things kind of can't be, I mean, creating those things can be done by AI at some stage, most likely, but the ones that exist from the former times or now will still have value in the future and will be able to be protected, I would assume. In terms of how copyright law changes, in terms of like using copywritten materials as training data for large language models, your guess is as good as mine. I'm not a lawyer, and this is like the cutting edge of law. So I have no idea. It's a very, very interesting, complicated, and um,
You know what?
important
We'll
topic
just
for
we'll just
today.
throw it into ChatGPT and get back to you with an answer.
Yeah, it
Um,
will be. It will be. It's probably one of the responses that's been not let thrown to the model, I would guess, because it's sensitive for the companies making the models.
yeah. Mark did just share in the chat an interesting article about ruling that AI content can be copyrighted if humans are heavily involved in the creation process, which of course opens up a much bigger conversation about the extent of
Interesting.
IP and like blogs. And, we know that Google is going to start rewarding differently for search if there's more effort put in versus just, rote copy that's been taken from automation. So a lot of interesting things to come in that area. Another
Makes me
question that
think,
I,
can you
go ahead.
copyright a prompt?
Well, that's interesting because
It's
that
an
is one of
int
the things that's shared so heavily in like LinkedIn right now, right? Is like, oh, follow this for my prompt on how to get X, Y, and Z done. At what
Yeah,
point does
exactly.
that become more valuable than the output?
Well, and then
Wow.
like dynamic prompt, like one of the ways that Junglytics works is through dynamic prompting. And so combining like old software techniques of like, um, I guess I'll just leave it at that, with prompt engineering and creating dynamic prompts based upon a user and all of the things that you can kind of key off of. Um, anyway,
Tony said, act like Vanessa Hung is his prompt. So take that as a compliment, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you,
all right,
Tommy.
we're all friends here. Vanessa and Tom, do you have any questions for each other? You come from different sides of the AI and automation experience. Anything you want to ask or talk about?
Uh, Well, I remember the first conversation about this webinar, the whole webinar. We were already debating, and I'm like, what Tom just said is so interesting, and at the end, like so, I guess, contrarian to what I feel the speech and these salespeople are selling with AI. And a lot was like, I think you mentioned it, Tom, a little bit. It's just like the richer will keep getting richer. I don't know if there is a way where, I don't know, thinking about this will help democratize a lot of, or the access to a lot of tools to create things. So I don't know if that's something like you take in consideration, because I know you have a strong opinion on how Amazon is making these decisions and where it's moving. Um, but yeah, that's the only thing I don't think we cover.
Yeah, I mean, just to be specific about what we were talking about previously, I think there's a potentially, I won't say this is a strong opinion, but it is, I think, where my brain goes if I lead things to the limit in terms of the Amazon seller marketplace and AI. And as you lower the barrier to creating things, and then eventually you lower the barrier to doing things, and you look at Amazon as a technology company, not a marketplace, because really the marketplace is a relatively small part of their business. Um, to me, it becomes potentially clear that they may actually go the route of kind of, as automation comes in, product development becomes easier, logistics becomes easier, demand forecasting becomes easier, listing optimization becomes easier. Once all of these things are essentially free, why do they need any of us?
Yeah, I love that.
And Bezos has a quote that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with: "Your margin is my opportunity." And in a world where, quote unquote, everything is free, why would they give any of that margin to any of us?
Yeah.
I liked Vanessa's version of the margarita and the beach a lot better, Tom.
Well,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
then gets into the questions of, like, I don't know, previous to OpenAI blowing up, Sam Altman was very, very interested in universal basic income and these sorts of like social programs that
And now not
are often
anymore.
talked alongside with AI systems. I think he actually is still very interested in it. It's just not as much of a topic of conversation anymore.
But
All
he's trying
things,
to change the for-profit model for OpenAI, no?
uh, his interest in universal basic income was outside of OpenAI entirely.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
Got
yeah.
it.
Um,
Interesting. Yeah, communism has always been like a very romantic thought. Like
yeah.
whatever, like it's beautiful. Like if you talk about it, it's just like wow, it is the most amazing dream. Is that achievable and realistic? Unlikely. But yeah, I like that perspective of like, okay, what happens? And honestly, truly, and I hate that I'm not trying to end this in a on a negative note, but if that is a world and if that is a possibility, and I don't know what's the percentage of that possibility of what you just said,
Yeah, who knows?
then as business owners and entrepreneurs, we have the responsibility to find other options. Because I will hate to see, people here in the webinar or people in the industry like lose, I guess, their business or their income, their livelihood, just because they were not aware of the possibilities. And that to me is where I feel we have the duty to do and have these conversations, because I feel that sometimes people are not talking about it, and it's just like it's not that it's not happening, guys, it's happening, but people are afraid to be contrarians or polemic or that.
All right. I want to give folks the rest of their day back. I want to thank Tom and Vanessa, of course, for being here and facilitating this conversation. Given that everyone in the survey said that they would like a part two, we will be coming to you with a part two
Yay.
at some point. But I also couldn't end this conversation without saying something positive about AI and automation. So I asked ChatGPT to tell me something positive. And I just want to say, AI and automation are revolutionizing industries by eliminating repetitive tasks and freeing up time for human creativity for higher value work. So whether you believe me or you believe the robot, there's still good things.
Perfect PR. Perfect.
Got it. All right. Thank you guys so much. Thank you everyone for attending. And yes, we will send out the replay afterwards.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.